We do more than just staffing. We are teaching the administrators, we're teaching the teachers. We provide people who evaluate teachers, people who evaluate superintendents, principals, counselors. We provide the training for that.
Welcome to episode 63 of the LorainCounty.com Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Skimmon. I'd like to open by highlighting LorainCounty.com's champion sponsors, WOBL Radio, Emerge Inc., Lorain County JVS, Community Foundation of Lorain County, Lorain County Community College, and Lorain County Commissioners. Today, we're talking with Franco Gallo, Superintendent of the Educational Service Center of Lorain County. Join us as Franco talks about the ESC's history and its vital role in supporting school districts through shared services, professional development, and strategic staffing. He discusses cost-saving initiatives, collaborations with local businesses, and how the ESC is preparing for future challenges like AI in education. Franco also shares insights from his leadership journey and outlines ESC's goals for continuing to serve the educational community. Growing up, both of my parents were teachers. This provided a front row seat to the challenges and rewards of working in education. It gave me an early appreciation for the lasting impact educators have, not just on students, but on the entire community. In many communities, especially in Lorain County, the local school district is more than just a place of learning. It's a central part of the community's identity. Schools bring people together, foster pride, and play a vital role in attracting families, supporting property values, and preparing the next generation of employees, employers, and local leaders. Strong schools help create strong communities. The work that Franco and the Educational Service Center team does is often behind the scenes, but their impact, from cost-saving initiatives to strengthening instruction, delivers meaningful benefits for each community in Lorain County. Here is my conversation with Franco Gallo.
Franco Gallo. I am the superintendent here at the ESC of Lorain County.
Welcome, Franco. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. Could you provide an overview of the Educational Service Center of Lorain County and describe your role as superintendent within the organization?
The Educational Service Center of Lorain County is actually the former County Board of Education. They made a transition in 1995 to become educational service centers. The old county boards were there to make sure that all of the schools across the state had equitable access to the same services and high level of services that they should have as a school. Things have changed, schools consolidated, and they changed to educational service centers where we provide services to the school districts. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the examples, but we provide all kinds of services, whether it's professional development, we provide staff, we provide networks for principals, superintendents, social workers, you name it. There's a place where we all get together with all of the staff to do network meetings. We have a consortium for insurance for 12 of our districts. Basically, you name it, we share staff. We do it for our schools, and a lot of people don't realize all the things that we do.
Do you still do the cooperative purchasing?
We have a partner that we do cooperative purchasing with the Ohio Schools Council. One thing that has changed is that ESCs work together, and we partner with two other educational service centers and do programming together with Medina and the Northeast Ohio ESC and the Ohio School Council. We do a lot of ventures together with them. So we do a number of things for schools in all aspects.
The part I've known about is the idea that if a district isn't big enough to need a full-time teacher in a specific area, you might hire them and then have them work in multiple schools in the course of a week.
Yes, we do a lot of that. For example, not every school district, especially a smaller school district, needs a full-time audiologist, for example. We will hire a staff member and they'll do potentially a half a day in one district, and maybe they even work with just one student in another district, and maybe they have to spend an entire day in another district, but the districts share the costs. It becomes a big cost savings for them to be able to not have to go to a private provider who's going to try to make profit. We just basically try to cover our costs, and that's the benefit we really provide. So we do that with audiology. We share staff, vision, mobility. We do that with gifted. So not every district may need a full-time gifted supervisor, but gifted obviously is a very important component of every school. We have staff that are shared there. And then there's times where the districts will say, hey, we talk to each other and we want to split a person in this role. For example, attendance officers. We have two districts that share an attendance officer. We can write up a contract, split the salary, and they're getting the service that they need, and they can share that cost.
So then the employee will become an employee of the Educational Service Center,
Correct.
But then you contract them out to the school districts and divide the costs.
Yeah, correct. And so they have a job description with us, but it's crafted with the district. We pay their salary. We provide the insurance benefits if there are any issues or FMLA or anything like that. We take care of that. But essentially to the districts, they look like they're just their staff. They generally are issued their school district ID. They have an ID with us, and sometimes if they're shared, they might have 4 or 5 IDs.
Sure.
And they are in multiple districts and wear lots of hats and have lots of offices. And every place is different.
So their car's loaded with IDs that they swap in and out.
Yeah. And if every place has a different way of doing things, it could be in one district, they have to have a key. In another district, they have a swipe card, and they might have a whole bunch of different email addresses. It's interesting.
Could you share the history of ESC? I know you said it came out of the Lorain County School Board. What was the main issue that it was addressing at the time, and then how has it evolved since then?
The school districts each had a county board. And so 1914, I believe, is when the ESC Lorain County was established. We still have minutes from there. It's really interesting. But every county had a county board of education. And then, like I had said earlier, the roles had constantly changed, schools consolidated. And back in the day, school districts, the county superintendent had some oversight over the smaller school districts. Eventually, when there was enough consolidation, they felt that was not necessary. The school districts were large enough where they didn't need to get approval from the county boards. And in 1995, they made that change. Then it became more of a service organization, and there was some choice. The school districts have to choose to align. They have to align with an ESC, but they get choice. And so we have all of our county schools still, but there were some school districts in other counties that chose to leave, and some of the ESCs were dissolved because they either weren't providing services or they just didn't have the resources or whatnot. And so now there's 51. So we went from 88 to 51. And some of them are multi-county ESCs, like Northeast Ohio ESC. They have, I think, districts from like several counties. We just choose to partner rather than be in competition, and it's gone really well. We've been able to offer all the services that are needed.
So how many school districts do you serve?
14 districts are aligned to us. Those are the districts that have signed contracts with us to be part of our ESC. However, there's probably over 30 districts that we are doing at least one service with, because it might be an ESC next door doesn't have the service, or sometimes we have people who can become almost like educational rock stars, and they say, I want that person to come to my district and put on this PD. They get to have a little name for themselves, and sometimes it goes the other way too. People in our county say, I want this person from another county. It just depends on the service.
You've talked about, and your website mentions collaboration and sharing of resources. How does this reduce costs for students and residents? And then can you also talk about how it benefits the broader community?
Oh, yeah, 100%. When we're sharing costs with districts, there's a lot of times where they're experiencing huge savings. A lot of private providers will charge a lot more money, and we're looking to break even. So every district that saves thousands of dollars on their staff, and when they do multiple positions with us, they can save a lot of money. And by saving lots of money means they can put money into other things. They may be able to keep certain after-school programs, or they may be able to have more offerings because of the money that they're saving working with us. Districts will still ask me to say, is there anything you could do to reduce your rate? And I always try to tell them, I said, we are trying to just operate at cost, and we do have to pay people in order to keep them. One thing about our positions, a lot of them are specialized. If it's a teacher of the visually impaired, if it's an audiologist, some of these people who work for us, they require doctorate degrees in order to be in those roles. And you have to pay them also a salary commensurate with that. Sometimes there's not much we can do, but I assure them, I say, hey, we're not taking 20% for ourselves. We keep the minimal 4% to just keep ourselves going.
How do you define success at ESC? What are the metrics and outcomes that are important to you and your team?
We want to see all of our schools doing the very best that they can on their school report card. I feel like we contribute a lot to improving the schools in our area. And for example, recently the governor had instituted the law where everybody had to develop a literacy plan and do the science of reading and do that in their school districts. And they look to us to help train them on how to the best practices. And so our hope is that moving forward, they're going to start to see the results of kids' achievement in reading improving because our folks are out there helping them, for the ones that have worked with us. But I often meet with the superintendents, and I do go on a road show where I meet with them one-on-one, and I just ask them, what are we doing well? What can we do better? What do you need that we're not doing? And they often are giving me ideas. But my last round, a lot of the feedback was that we were doing everything that's needed, and they just need us to continue to provide that support and help them. And I wouldn't say that we're ever stopping here trying to improve. We meet regularly to discuss how can we meet the needs of our districts. And so as long as our superintendents and our supervisors out in the field are telling us we're doing a good job, and we do surveys and things like that. And so as long as we're getting that great feedback, we know that we're doing the right things, and we just continue to keep moving forward.
How are you funded besides the schools paying? You don't have a levy.
No, we do not. The only thing is we get a little bit of money from the state. When I say a little bit of money, I mean it's meant to pay for me, the treasurer, because those are in law. You have to have a treasurer and a superintendent. So money to keep the lights on and to pay for an assistant for the treasurer's office, basically the financial office, the function. And then the rest is all done with fee for service or grants. So that's why it's important that we charge a little bit of a fee. But like I said, we only charge 4%, and then the costs for the person. So when we're selling staff, we write grants. The state will offer grants. When COVID hit, there were grants from the state to try to help bring folks back up to speed after the learning loss that took place there. But aside from fee for service, yeah, that's pretty much how we operate. So a lot of times people will ask us, hey, can you donate for this, or can you support this, or can you sponsor this? And often I just say no across the board, because anything that I'm giving away is really the money that the districts give me to keep doing what we're doing. Even though we have money in our general fund or whatever, we have to be able to prepare for the fluctuations. There's sometimes we hire a staff member and we may not have 100% of the work for them, but we know we need it. And sometimes there's fluctuations. Kids come, kids go, districts need a service, they don't. A student will graduate. So in some of those programs where we have a student who's blind or a student who is struggling with hearing and whatnot, they eventually graduate and changes caseloads. And so sometimes that impacts funding as well.
With the new school year quickly approaching, what do you see as the biggest challenges and biggest opportunities?
There's a lot of uncertainty. At the beginning of the year, the title funds were held up at the federal level. A lot of the school districts didn't know if they were going to have them or not. So like, how do you plan if you don't know if you're going to potentially, in some of the districts, millions of dollars? There's been a look for property tax relief from our legislators, and it seems like all the solutions are coming at the expense of the schools. And so they just don't know how to plan, what's going to happen. That's really a big challenge. But in terms of things that we can impact, AI is just a huge thing going on right now. We're providing professional development to help our teachers use it so that they can improve lessons. It can help them save a lot of time. They can use it to help them with data. A lot of the things that were burdensome with teaching, AI can really lower the amount of effort when it comes to those types of things. There's also the piece that the students have AI as well. And how do they create lessons and activities and assess students in a way where the students aren't just cheating and putting it in there? So they have to really change their practices, because it used to be you could give them a multiple choice test or have them write an essay. Now we don't know who's doing it, right? How do we still use the tools that are available to them in a way that allows them to still think?
So is part of your role like aggregating the knowledge around that so that each individual school isn't trying to see what best practices are out there? Or
Yeah, some things just happen naturally where every district is struggling with the same thing. And then there's some problems that are unique to rural schools or urban schools or suburban schools, or some of them just may have a report card and they say, we really want to improve our math scores. So it just depends. No one's in this alone. There's definitely somebody who's going to be in the same boat as you in certain issues. And we have people that put their brains together and say, all right, who needs this help? Who needs that help? And then they reach out to the districts, or the districts reach out to us and say, can you help us with this? And we try to make sure that we have the support for them.
you mentioned that Lorain County is kind of unique in that we have urban school districts, suburban school districts, and rural school districts. Does that ever cause challenges, or are there opportunities in that?
No, I always feel like when I talk to legislators or anybody at the state in Columbus, I always say Lorain County is a great representation of the state. But I find that there's a great value in having all of those different experiences here in this county. I think there's just a lot that can happen when these communities get together and sporting events and interact. We do professional development sometimes where we get two districts that come together and they hear a speaker or they plan a professional development today, and they work with teachers and they say, oh, I didn't realize that you guys had these opportunities, or you're offering this class and we would like to offer that class in our district. There's just a lot of learning that can take place when you have more variety of the districts.
Can you talk about some of the ways in which you work with the business community?
So we have the Business Advisory Council that we run out of the ESC. So in 2018, there was a law that said the school districts had to have their own Business Advisory Council, or they could partner with an ESC so they weren't duplicating the work. Because, for example, we have 14 school districts here in the county. And if all of the school districts hit up the same businesses, they wouldn't want to be on all 14 councils. So because of the way Lorain County works, they thought it would be better that we would just do one and they would have representatives. So We took that over. And in the very beginning, I was running the BAC. And then the needs and the demands and COVID hit and the jobs had changed and whatnot. And it became much more work. And the state put more of an onus on us to say, we don't want to just meet and talk about it. We want kids to have opportunities. We want to collect data. And I'm the superintendent and I have my own job. And so it became, oh, this can't just be a side thing. It had to be its own thing. So now Dave Miller is responsible for that. And that's his primary role, is doing that work. And you have to meet 4 times in a year to have the council meeting, but then he's putting on experiences. Like, for example, a real great one we do is at the Cleveland Clinic. We take kids from all the districts. It's a small group because they can only house so many, but the kids get to go there and see all of the different jobs that are offered by the hospital. And so there's jobs obviously at the Cleveland Clinic that involve technology. There's jobs that involve finance, right? Everybody still needs that maintenance. They still
Right.
need all those positions. And so there's a lot of people who don't realize that there's jobs that are there. And that's one great example. But we are working with the business community all the time to try to find who will come in and speak to classes and talk a little bit about what they do. That's the easiest thing that people can do. But then everything to what kind of jobs that high schoolers can intern with, or apprenticeships, or just basically anything that is associated with the workforce, we can help with that. And then Dave has a website on our website called the Business Advisory tab, and they have a map. And if your business is interested in helping out, we want you to be on our map so that schools can go and look at that map and say, okay, they're willing to help. We can make a phone call to them
Yeah.
and they'll be willing to send a speaker or let kids come and see their place.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people who have thought that manufacturing is dirty and greasy and this, that, and the other. And they go in and they realize they're working with robots and it's clean and it's high tech. And they say, "Ah, man, I drove by that place and I had no idea what was behind those walls." And we would have never known that there were highly skilled folks who went to college who are working in some of these facilities.
Sure.
They had no clue.
My dad was a math teacher, and every year he would bring a plumber in to have the plumber explain all the math that he does in just his day-to-day job, because kids at 13, 14, 15 didn't think they would ever need math again. And
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up because one of the experiences was math in the real world. Dave had brought to Logitech as a business, and they went and talked about how they use math and where it applies. And they've even had teachers. We do teacher boot camps. That's another whole piece that we do with the Business Advisory Council, is we have the teachers go out to the businesses. And there's 10 sites. They did it over the summer, over 5 days, and they went and visited all of these different places. And it was all in the in-demand jobs, IT, manufacturing, and healthcare. And they were able to see what was going on, what jobs are available, what kind of perks. Do they do tuition reimbursement? They train them. And that's the other piece, is our teachers, a lot of times they are in school, they see their teachers say, I want to do that. They go to school to be a teacher and they come back in, they have no clue what the other businesses and other jobs look like. So how are they supposed to advise kids on what to do? Or even within their content areas. We've had a couple cohorts that have come through and they really love the professional development that they get from it. And it's been a success.
what's something people don't normally know about ESC that you'd want them to know?
That we do more than just staffing. I think a lot of people think we do just like substitute teachers and you can get your background check here. And we are teaching the administrators, we're teaching the teachers. We run a preschool over in LaGrange. We provide the staff for Avon's preschool. We do people who evaluate teachers, people who evaluate superintendents, people who evaluate principals, counselors. We provide the training for that. We have a wellness department. So we're working with districts on best practices in wellness.
Do you like hiring of superintendents? Like, do you guys help with that?
I do searches. We hire superintendents and treasurers.
Okay.
And so we don't necessarily hire them. We help the school boards hire them. So I just recently did a search in Avon. And so they were looking for a superintendent and done that a couple of times. In Lorain, when they needed a superintendent there, we did that.
Let's switch over and talk a little bit about you. What's
Yeah.
your background and what led you to the superintendent role at ESC?
I started as a teacher and a coach at the Elyria City Schools. I was an Elyria boy, went to school there, went to LCC, and didn't have much and took advantage of all the opportunities I had. So I took advantage of the fact that in Elyria I was able to play tennis there and got some opportunities to be successful there. Went to LCC, used my scholarship there 2 years, and then went from there to Cleveland State, played tennis there. They started their tennis team. I probably wasn't good enough to be on their tennis team, but I ended up playing there and got a scholarship to do my last 2 years and got a degree in education. My very first year, I taught science, but then I taught math after that here at Westwood. So Elyria hired me back. They like to hire their own, and it was great. I taught there for 5 years, and then I went to become the assistant principal at Northwood Junior High. It was a junior high at the time, not a middle school. I worked there for 2 years, and then I went to Clearview. I did a year as the athletic director and assistant principal, and that was a great year. We had Anthony Hitchens, who was a great football player at the time, and we went to the NFL, and we won a lot that year. It was great. And then I was the high school principal after that when Tom Jama became the superintendent. After 3 years of that, I went to Keystone to become the high school principal there. I'd been in urban schools for about 11, 12 years at that point, and that opportunity came and wanted to try something different. And I did that for a year and a half, and then they had a superintendent opening that happened mid-year there, if you remember. I stepped in as the interim and then ended up becoming the permanent superintendent there. So I was there a total of 5 years. The opening came up here at the ESC. I had a lot of little kids. My passion was for helping people, and the parts of the superintendency where it was the staffing and all the things that basically they do here were my favorite things. And it wasn't always going to the late night events, all the volleyball games and things like that. It just wasn't like where my passion was. My passion was doing the work that we were doing here. Typically, the folks who were in this role were not my age. I was late 30s, and I put my name in the hat, but wasn't expecting to get a job. And then I did. I've been here since. This is going to be my 8th year.
In the 8 years you've been here, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
We've really grown our staff and services and the partnerships that we have with the other ESCs. And I believe we are at the point now where if any superintendent needed something, we could say, yes, we could do that. We're not able to do that when I first started here. And now we can say yes. And we've grown our staff so much and grown our services so much and made partnerships where in the places where we don't have some of our own staff. And it just makes sense to partner, honestly. Like a lot of our ESCs, the ones that are most successful, that's what they do. Every ESC shouldn't replicate some of the things that are done. They should work together. Yeah, that is what I'm most proud of, is that I think we can say yes to just about anything they ask.
Going forward, what are your goals? What would you still like to accomplish?
Just to keep moving this place forward. I would just like that when I retire, hopefully in 7 years, that when I leave, I can say that we're thriving. The districts are all excited to still work with us and feel like we're providing top-notch services to them and continuing to have great relationships with all of them.
How would you describe your leadership style? What principles shape the way you lead, and who or what has influenced your leadership style the most?
I went to a training, over 10 years ago that really changed me the most was Tim and Brian Kite Focus 3. If you remember the national championship Ohio State team where they won with their third string quarterback, I had a football coach, Don Griswold, who from Keystone, and he had said, hey, Ohio State went to the Ohio State camp or the coaches clinic. And he said, we heard these guys and they have a great message. I think you'd love it. And so it was E plus R equals O. Be elite in your 20 square feet. And Ohio State believed in this stuff. He taught us this stuff, and I thought it was amazing. And then that year was the year that they kept losing their quarterbacks. And they said that message of your response is what matters. You can't control the events that happen in your life, but you can control your response. And the better your response, the better the outcome. They ended up winning a national championship that year, despite all the adversity. And it's really resonated with me because that's all you can control is your responses. And between that concept and I've read some books, Atomic Habits and Good to Great, and a lot of those things, basically the best companies and the best organizations is that they don't let some of that small stuff bother them. If you go out and every person in your organization does the very best that they can and you talk about what excellence looks like, then there's really no debate. So when people get out of line, you say, hey, we know what we're supposed to be doing and here's the standard. And you have your mission and vision line up to that. And then you got to have people who are willing to hold people accountable. That is really the most important thing and has resonated and has helped me be successful. You know, are things perfect? No, they're never perfect. People repackage it and they sell different books and concepts, but it all goes back to if you have your space and you do the very best you can in those spaces, great things will happen. There's a reason why Apple is what Apple is. And there's a reason why Chick-fil-A, people love what goes on there and things like that, because they know you have an expectation of what you're going to get every single time you go in there and it's going to be quality. So I just try to apply that.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how education works at Ohio, what would you change?
I feel like a lot of education policy is driven from people who don't talk to people who are in the education world. I feel like a lot of times there are things that could cause less stress and could maybe work to better solutions if people would work with people who are actually in the field and bring them to the table. There are some folks who do that, and sometimes that happens, but there's times where things don't happen. People are making rules and regulations and things like that. And some people will say, well, have you sat down and talked to an educator? Have you talked to a principal? I feel like that is the biggest challenge that we face.
Finally, where can people go to get more information about the Educational Service Center of Lorain County and connect with you?
If you want to learn more about the ESC, go to www.esclc.org. Our website is really good. It has a lot of drop downs, and you can learn a lot about what we do and what we're all about. If you are a business and you want to support the students or the schools in bringing awareness about what you do, we would be happy to partner with you. So you could go into a classroom and talk to kids, or let us be more aware about what you're doing. Let us come visit you. So make sure that you let us know there's an opportunity for you out there.
Thanks, Franco, for joining us and sharing your insights.
Oh, no problem. Happy to help.
Thank you for listening to the LorainCounty.com Insights Podcast. Each episode, we share conversations with the people shaping life in Lorain County, from business and government to education, nonprofits, healthcare, and entertainment. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can also visit LorainCounty.com to discover local events, volunteer opportunities, and more community resources. If you know someone who's making a difference in Lorain County, send us a note at podcast@loraincounty.com. We would love to share their story and insights. Special thanks to our producer, Leah Gerke, and to you for listening. This has been the LorainCounty.com Insights Podcast, conversations with the people shaping Lorain County.